Neuroscience, where I explain neuroscience topics in 2 minutes or less. In this installment, I will discuss opioids. The term opioid refers to substances that bind to opioid receptors, usually to exert pain-relieving effects. Opioids can be found naturally in the opium poppy, or they can be partially or completely synthetic. In addition to pain relief, opioids also cause sedation, anxiety reduction, and euphoria, along with a variety of other effects. When opioids bind to opioid receptors, they promote potassium conductance, which makes a neuron less likely to fire an action potential. And they inhibit calcium conductance, which makes a neuron less likely to release neurotransmitters. What effect these actions have depends on where the receptors are found. When opioid receptors on neurons in the spinal cord that carry information about pain are activated, it can inhibit the transmission of pain information to the brain. Opioids can also act on descending pain modulatory systems to reduce pain. For example, by binding to receptors in an area of the brainstem called the periaqueductal gray, opioids can prompt the inhibition of pain signaling in the spinal cord via a pathway that first synapses in the medulla. Opioids can reduce the emotional impact of pain by acting in brain regions like the anterior cingulate cortex, and they increase dopamine levels in areas like the nucleus accumbens, which may contribute to the reinforcing qualities of the drugs. Exposure to opioid drugs leads to tolerance, which involves a decreased response to the drug and a need to take more to produce the same effect. The mechanisms of opioid tolerance aren't fully understood, but they're thought to involve adaptive changes like a reduction in the number of functional receptors for the drug to act at. Adaptations in response to the presence of the drug also lead to dysregulation when the drug is removed, and withdrawal effects that are opposite in many ways to the typical effects of the drug.
So in a way, in a nutshell, that 2-minute video basically stated that kratom is not a real opiate because it doesn't come from the poppy plant, and it's not a synthetically made opiate, but it does act like an opiate. It binds to the same receptors that opiates bind to. So some scientists would say it is an opiate because it binds to those receptors. But you get all the good effects from it with kratom, but you don't get any of the negative. You don't get the addiction, you don't get the come down, the crash. When I was addicted to opiates, I had to keep taking them one after the other because I would crash and my pain would still be there. And then I found kratom, and I can just sip my kratom tea all day and feel fine. And it makes my day a lot more productive. And it gives me a reason to wake up in the morning. And I wake up at 4 a.m. and have my first cup of kratom. So an opioid receptor is called a dendrite. And a dendrite is basically the receiving end of a neuron. A neuron is what sends the electrical signal to and from your brain. So kratom actually goes in there and blocks the pain receptors, and which causes an amazing amount of pain relief. I just fell and hit my head and tweaked my neck really wrong, and now my neck is feeling fine again. I can actually move it. And that's just after 1 cup of kratom. But the video does a good job of demonstrating an action potential, which is actually that synapse, which is the gap between the axon and the dendrite. The axon sends the signal, the dendrite receives the signal. So the dendrite would be a receiver, or a receptor, because it's going to take the opioid chemical and shoot it to your dendrite, which is going to suck it up into your brain, take it down your spine, and give you that pain relieving effect, and give you that warm, nice, good feeling. It makes me a lot more social. I feel like I'm not afraid to leave my apartment anymore because I drink kratom. And I don't know what I would do without it, because I lived my entire life with migraines that were so bad that I had to go to the hospital 4 times. And they would immediately give me a shot in the ass of some sort of pain reliever. And then they would give me another shot in the ass of an anti-nausea Zog. I don't know what it's called. But I don't need to. And you don't need to know. So it's all part of the brain, and you can call it an opiate if you'd like, because it does bind to opiate receptors, but technically it's not an opiate. It doesn't have the same components in it that an opiate has. It just has a way of mimicking it, which is kind of an amazing thing that just a tree leaf can do, is mimic. I would like to know who walked around, picked a leaf off a tree and started chewing on it and decided, wow, this is really good. It makes your mouth go numb, because I've chewed on the leaves the traditional way, and it makes your mouth go numb, and then it made my throat tight, which I didn't like that. But it didn't get my pain level down, and it did make me feel good. Which is why the only way that I take it is with a tea. And I'll make a video on how to make a tea step by step to take all the mystery out of it. Because in my opinion, kratom tea is the best way to go, because it gets it in your bloodstream right away, and it gets it to your brain right away. And you can control it, you know. Once you start to feel good, you can back off a little bit, you know, and drink a cup of coffee and really get a zing. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing really well. Peace out, everyone.